Everybody, hope all is well. Welcome back for today's edition of Notre Dame Daily. I'm Pete Mulroy. And first, as far as this weekend's game against Purdue is confirmed, the football program noted Monday afternoon that a couple of guys are listed as questionable heading into the game. Leonard Moore, battling the left ankle that saw him exit for a few moments in Saturday's loss to A&M, is one of those guys alongside safety Devontae Smith, who actually rolled his ankle pregame and was out. Don't you think they could have used him in the back end? And kicker Noah Burnett, who's dealing with a right hip injury, all listed as questionable for the 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time kick against the Boilermakers. So I'll be sure to keep an eye on any additions to this or removals or updates at large moving forward this week. If Burnett specifically is unable to go, a competition, Marcus Freeman said, between Marcello Diomede and Eric Schmidt will take place for the temporarily available job. Now, back to business. Through two games, we know the Irish defense has been abysmal. That's not an opinion. And while many are calling for a widespread change in schematics and play calling, Marcus Freeman is not ready to push the proverbial panic button, at least as it pertains to his defensive coordinator, Chris Ash. And speaking to the media shortly after Saturday's crushing 41-40 defeat, where again, while the defense was terrible, it wasn't the only reason for the loss. Freeman said this: "It's not the call, quote unquote, it's the execution. I've always believed that sometimes calling things can be overrated as much as it's the execution of that play call," end quote. Now, Freeman is left trying to answer the question of how the Irish defense begins to execute the game plan. But with a passive approach in large chunks of both the Miami and Texas A&M games, where the Irish seem to be out of sorts, solely relying on a zone scheme that brought basically zero pressure to the opposition's front five and QBs, can't we justifiably question the scheme? Overall, it just isn't working, and it's blatantly obvious. Yes, lazy safety play against Miami, a bad targeting call on a Don Schuler Saturday, horrendous tackling along the sideline on an 86-yard catch-and-run score where Jalen Stroman was beat badly out of position, and a handful of other miscues don't help. But when your guys are not put in the position to excel at their strengths, playing physical, applying pressure, getting after the quarterback, how can we completely dismiss the idea that Ash's scheme clearly is not a fit through 3 weeks and 2 games? 2 measly tackles for loss in Saturday's game, along with, again, 0 sacks, just compounds these issues. If it doesn't change, it may not matter how many points the offense puts up. This is a problem, and it requires much more than just execution. There must be balance, trust, and understanding between both the scheme and from an execution standpoint. Right now, the Irish have none of that. As such, they're 0-2 when they could very well be 2-0, at worst 1-1. So we know that there are areas to clean up, and one of the biggies here, something we talked about after the Miami game, I hinted on it yesterday a bit. The Irish have 0 sacks across 2 games and have barely even sniffed putting pressure on either Carson Beck or Marcel Reed. In both games, despite various miscues and defensive deficiencies, the Irish had a chance to win both late in the fourth quarter. Having a pass rush and the ability to stop guys on the back end probably would have been enough to kick the Golden Blue to a 2-0 start to the season. At worst, you're 1-1. 488-yard surrender to Texas A&M, 360 via the aerial attack is an alarmingly awful statistic. And while the secondary has certainly had its issues, lacking the ability to get into the opposition's backfield and put pressure on the QB has also taken its toll on the third level of Notre Dame's defense. That can't be understated. Sure, Leonard Moore and Tay Johnson, more on the latter in a moment, have played solid football, undeniable. But up front, where do we go? Jason Onye, Donovan Heinisch, Bryce Young, Gabriel Beal, Josh Burnham simply have not provided the type of consistency up front we expected. Unable to get to both Beck and Reed, the Irish still have solid quarterbacks on the schedule coming up, which is cause for concern here, and it's justifiably so to have people worried about what lies ahead. And I'll talk about that in the final segment. Jaden Mayava, former Irish quarterback Steve Angeli, Arkansas's Taylon Green, who's, if you hadn't seen, he's thrown for over 850 yards, 11 scores, and he's got over 300 on the ground and a couple more scores across 3 games this season for the Razorback. Kid looked great. And you got a handful of other signal callers who could do damage to you if you give them too much time. More from Jordan Botelho, who, again, it's great to have him back. Plus a starting role for Kingston Viliamu-Asa. KVA's been unbelievable. He's been the one constant in the area of high motor and productivity. It's absolutely needed. You've got to get more from those guys. KVA's given you all he had. Keep him on the field. Install him. Insert him as a starter. He stays out there for as much run as possible. He's the definition of an impact player. The front seven has not been aggressive, and their physicality has been non-existent. Getting short yardage stops in the run game has been a problem, particularly at the goal line. We saw that Saturday night. Is also another area of concern. You've given up over 800 yards and 68 points in 2 games. It's a ridiculous statistic, where you were a top 5 unit in just those statistics a year ago. And if my number's off, they were comfortably top 8. Notre Dame's defense needs to be more aggressive. Developing that consistent pass rush is going to go a long way in re-solidifying this group as a legitimate one. You can't sit back there and be passive and say, oh, the sacks will come. No, they won't. Not if you don't change up your approach. Not if you don't get that aggressive style of play that we have grown accustomed to in South Bend under Marcus Freeman back in gear. I have no doubt that Marcus Freeman knows what he wants to do and how to do it. And I got the comments on yesterday's show are great, by the way, talking about sometimes you make a hire and it falls flat. And that's a great point. And I'm not even saying that this hire is going to fall flat. We're 2 weeks in, but it's a horrendous start to that role for a first-time defensive coordinator at the University of Notre Dame and Chris Ash. This is his first go-around here. Not a great start. Whether you think it's schematics, whether you think it's the execution, whether you think it's the planning, the rollout of the plan, collectively, it's just not working. But yes, your plan put in place is part of it. And I love Marcus Freeman just as much as the next one. But it's a double-edged sword here. It's not just the execution. Yeah, you got to go out there and do your job. But you've got to be great coaches will put on any level of sport, regardless of sport, will put their players in the best position to excel based on what they consider their own personal strengths. It's got to be done. Part of that will be Notre Dame getting in the damn backfield of the opposition. It's so frustrating, and I get it. Another thing, you got to stop the explosive plays. And getting your better playmakers on the field more often will aid in that department. You're talking about a Notre Dame team that surrendered 8 plays of 20-plus yards Saturday to Texas A&M, which when you break it down shouldn't come as that big of a surprise. When you can't generate the pass rush, as we talked about, and have third-level guys wildly out of position or getting beat over and over, huge chunks are going to be taken by the offense. That's exactly what happened Saturday night. And if you want to talk about the big picture as far as the college football playoff is concerned, we know the Irish need to win out and post a final regular season record of 10-2. Okay, fine. But you drop the first 2 games of the season, you're going to need some help now. You need Miami and A&M to keep winning. Plus, you still have to beat Boise State, USC, a couple other teams, and then hope they're able to stack wins. It's a mess. And while the pass rush woes are a major reason for the defensive deficiencies, there are moments where the Irish don't have their best, most impactful players on the field. Mario Craver, who I talked about yesterday, kid's a stud, crushed the Irish secondary to the tune of 7 catches for 207. He also added an 86-yard catch and run touchdown that should not have been, where Stroman, again, wildly out of position, and then shoddy combined tackling up that sideline. It was laughable. One potential way to shut down the explosive plays, at least to me, would be inserting Tay Johnson into the starting lineup and keeping him on the field. Jalen Stroman was bad Saturday night, and it showed. On the outside, Christian Gray also had an evening to forget. And while I don't expect to see a change there, and murky waters now with Leonard Moore listed as questionable, though I think he's going to go Saturday afternoon against Purdue. Perhaps we start to see more from the likes of Dallas Golden, Creed Thomas, Mark Zachary. I know in the linebacker department, many of the fans are screaming for Madden Faremo. Impact players who have that desire to go after it. I get it. Maybe we see the influx of some of this younger talent a little more now as it continues to go, so long as they're not viewed as liabilities and don't play that way. So far, it's been 2 weeks of confusion, busted coverages, missed assignments, and miscommunication across the board, especially on that back end. But you've got to have your best out there. Allowing your top players, most productive players, to get and stay on the field, particularly KVA and Tay, will go a long way in getting this defense closer to where it should be, as we all expected, and where it needs to be. Excuse the sniffles. I caught my daughter's cold over the weekend. And just wrapping up, like I said, after the way the Irish have played on defense, and with some unforced errors across the board, no doubt, no game, including this weekend against Purdue, is going to be easy. The theme of today has changed, and it's sort of what it was yesterday, because that's what's needed. And looking ahead, there are some tricky contests here, especially when you talk about the way Notre Dame has looked. Arkansas on the road September 27, noon Eastern time kick. Not going to be easy. Boise back in South Bend the week after is going to have its challenges as well, even though the Broncos haven't been world beaters to start the season. NC State plays a physical brand of football traditionally, and then you got another opponent in USC we expect to be able to move the ball offensively. Problem, potentially, unless you get it fixed, unless you exact change. Then you have a Navy team. It's racked up serious yardage to start the season, albeit, I know, against inferior opponents that are a step down from Notre Dame. But that matchup is traditionally tricky with some outliers like last season's beatdown at Giant Stadium. Overall, the Irish need to, MetLife Stadium, the Irish need to get their collective heads together beginning Saturday against Purdue, where they are a monster favorite. 26.5 last I checked, minus 26.5. Start checking off victory boxes by cleaning up mistakes and playing the physical brand of football we all expect. I trust the offense. Now we just need the compliment from the other side and the consistency in special teams. You get that, you've got something working. But you've got a massive mountain to climb now. 2 losses, 4 points combined. Okay. Many are going to push that panic button, and it makes sense. But there are areas that seem simple enough to clean up right in front of you, where, don't forget, this is a defense that brought back a massive load of guys from last year's unreal group under Al Golden. Should be fixable. Got to start seeing changes. Have a great rest of yours. We'll talk to you tomorrow. And as always, go Irish.